Hi there and welcome to Penguin Learning. In this National 4 Maths lesson, today we are going to go over some non-calculator practice questions that we can expect to see in a National 4 non-calculator exam. In this lesson we are going to go over 5 questions which will test our knowledge, mostly on things like times tables, percentages and fractions, and how we can solve them without the aid of a calculator. So first of all, look at the questions first and try them by yourself, and if you've got the answer or you're stuck, then follow along afterwards and check if you got the right answer, and then hopefully at the end this will give you better practice when it comes to exam time. So let's get started.
Ooh la la!
Okay, so let's have a look at this first question that we have for our National 4 non-calculator practice lesson. We are told that in a primary school 40% of the pupils are boys, and there are 150 pupils altogether, and we have to figure out how many pupils are boys. So the first thing that we can see is that we are given a percentage, and we're also given a total number here. So when it asks us to figure out how many pupils are boys, we can see that we have to use our knowledge of percentages to figure out this answer. So we have 150 pupils in total, and if 40% of them are boys, and we have to figure out how many of these are boys, then we have to do a percentage of this 150 pupils. So we would have to do 40% of 150. And because this is non-calculator, we have to figure out a way how to do this by ourselves. And the best way to do this is to convert the percentage into a fraction. So if we have 40%, we know that is the same as 40 divided by 100 as a fraction. And when we say a percentage of something, what that really means is multiplying it by whatever we want to figure out. So 40% of 150 is the same as saying 40 over 100 times by 150. Okay, so now we have it in this form, we have to figure out a way to simplify this, because if we don't, then it's going to be quite difficult to perform these calculations without using a calculator. So what I'm going to do is simplify, and the way that we can do that with fractions and multiply is that we can simplify numbers that are on top or on bottom of each other. So the 40 and the 100 can be simplified by each other, or we can do diagonally. So we can do this 150 and 100, they can be simplified into each other as well. So what I'm going to do first is simplify the 40 and the 100, and because both of them have a 0 at the end of them, then that means that they're both divisible by 10. So what I'm just going to do is cancel off a 0 from the 40 and the 100, so we're left with 4 over 10 times by 150. And now what I'm going to do is look at the diagonal numbers. So now we'll have 150 and 10, and because both of them still have a 0 at the end, then we can also cancel off one more 0 from each. So that means that our sum just becomes 4 divided by 1 times by 15, and 4 divided by 1 is just the same as 4, so we are just left by 4 multiplied by 15. And if we do this as a sum, so we have 15 multiplied by 4, we know that 5 times 4 is 20, so we put down the 0 and carry the 2, and then we have 4 times 1 is 4, add on the 2, 5, 6. So that means that our final answer, 40% of 150, is equal to 60. So the key thing for this question was to recognise how to simplify this part, and what we did was, first of all, we cancelled zeros from the 40 and the 100, and we were left with 4 over 10, and then we cancelled out zeros from the 150 and the 10, and that made us left with 4 divided by 1 times by 15, which is the just same thing as 4 times 15, and that gave us our answer of 60. So that means that in the primary school there are 60 boys out of a possible 150 pupils. Okay, so question 2, we are told that 6 football matches were played over the weekend, and the number of goals scored in each match is shown below. So here we have that here, and we're asked to calculate the mean number of goals scored. So if we've been asked to calculate the mean, then we know that we have to think about averages and how to calculate it. And basically the information given to us means that, well, in game 1 there were 0 goals, game 2 there were 5, Game 3 there was 7, Game 4 there was 4, Game 5 there was 2, and Game 6 there were 5 goals. So we have to figure out the mean number of goals between these 6 games. And so the formula for the mean in this question would be the total number of goals divided by the number of games that were played. So the total number of goals is equal to 0 plus 5 plus 7 plus 4 plus 2 and plus 5, and we know that the number of games was 6. Now let's add up all of these numbers on the top. So 0 plus 5 is 5, 5 plus 7 is 12, 12 plus 4 is 16, 16 plus 2 is 18, and 18 plus 5 is 23. So we can say that the mean is equal to 23 divided by 6, or which is the same as saying 23 divided by 6. So now what we have to do is solve this calculation. So if we do this as a sum, we have 23 divided by 6. Well, we know that 6 goes into 2, well, it's too big. So what we have to do is carry the 2 over and ask ourselves, well, how many times does 6 go into 23? So the 6 times table, we have 6, 12, 18, 24. So 24 is too big, so that means 6 times 3 is 18, so 6 goes into 23 3 times. And then we're going to have something left over, we have a remainder, but in this case we're asked to put our answer to 2dp, which just means 2 decimal places. So we're going to have to put this answer into a decimal, so that means it's going to be 3 point something. So what we do then is carry the 0, and we have to think, well, we said that 6 times 3 is 18, but we have 23, so the difference between 18 and 23 would be 5, which means we have to carry the 0, so that becomes 50. And now to get the first number after the decimal place, we have to ask ourselves, how many times does 6 go into 50? Well, 6 times 8 is 48, and that's the closest that we can get to that, so our first number after the decimal point would be 8. And then again, we would have to think of the remainder, so if 6 times 8 is 48, and we have 50, then the remainder between 50 and 48 is going to be 2. And now for our final decimal place, we have to think, how many times does 6 go into 20? Well, we said that we have 6, 12, 18. 6 times 3 is 18, so that means that our last decimal place is going to be equal to 3. So our final answer for 23 divided by 6 would be 3.83 to 2 decimal places. Or in other words, that means that the average amount of goals scored over the 6 football matches is equal to 3.83 goals per game. So again, a question like this, first of all we have to know the formula to calculate the mean, and then lastly when we do a sum like this, the main thing we have to know is our times tables and the process of knowing how to divide. So again, we said that 6 goes into 23 3 times, and then we had the remainder of 5 which we carry over to get the first decimal point. We said that 6 goes into 50 8 times, and there was 2 left over. And then for the last decimal place, we said 6 goes into 20 3 times, and that gave us the last decimal point. And because we only asked for 2 decimal places, so that means that after this we don't have to do anything else, and that gave us our final answer. Now on to question 3. We are told that a car's petrol tank holds 85 litres of fuel, and that the petrol gauge indicates the tank is 3/5 full, and we have to figure out how many litres of petrol is in the tank. So because the information presented to us is a fraction, then we know that this question has to do with fractions. So from the question, because we know that the tank holds 85 litres, that means that when it's full we have 85 litres of fuel. So that would mean that 5/5, because that's what the question asks us, and we have to figure out 3/5. We know that 5/5 is equal to 85 litres. So to get 3/5, what it's like saying is 3 divided by 5 multiplied by 85. And what we can do, there's 2 ways that we can go about this. Multiply the top 2 numbers, so we have the 3 times 85, and then divide by the 5. Or what we can do, and what I always prefer to do, is to begin by dividing the 85 by the 5. So because the 3 is on the top, that means we have to multiply it by 85, but because the 5 is on the bottom, we have to divide. And what I always like to do first is begin by dividing it, because that means it will give us a smaller number, and that means it's a little bit more manageable during a non-calculator paper. So step 1, we want to do 85 divided by 5, which is the bottom number. And then to do that as a sum, we have, well, 5 goes into 8 once, and we have 3 left over. And 5 goes into 35 7 times, because 5 times 7 is 35. So that means that 85 divided by 5 gives us 17. So now we know this, then what we can do is finalise it by multiplying our answer by the 3. So because we did 85 divided by 5, we can now say that this is the same as 3 multiplied by 17. And then again, if we do this as a sum, we have 7 times 3, which gives us 21. So put the 1 down, carry the 2. And then we have 3 times 1, which is 3. Add on the 2, 4, 5. So that means our answer is 51. Or to bring it back into the context of the question, we would have 51 litres of petrol in our tank. Okay, so let's have a look at this next one, question 4. We are told to make a cake, a baker adds 2.65 kilograms of flour to 1.5 kilograms of butter, and the baker uses 3.85 kilograms of the mix in his cake, and we are asked to figure out how much of the mix is left over. So to begin this, we have to figure out how much weight of the mix we have in total. So we have 2.65 of flour and 1.5 of butter. So what we're going to do is add both of them together. So we have 2.65 plus 1.5, and that's the same as saying 1.50, just so that the amount of numbers after the decimal place is the same for both numbers. And now we can say 5 plus 0 is 5, 6 plus 5 is 11, carry the 1, then we have 2 plus 1 is 3, carry the 1 is 4. So in total we have 4.15 kilograms. And then now if we want to figure out how much is left over, well, what we have to do is take the total amount, so 4.15, we have to use that number and subtract the 3.85 of the mixture that he uses. So we would have 4.15, which was the total, minus the 3.85, which he takes to use the cake, and then we have 5 minus 5, which is 0, 1 minus 8, so we can't do that, so what I'm going to do is carry a 1 over. So we have 11 minus 8 is 3, and then 3 minus 3 is 0. So that means our answer, what is left over, is equal to 0.3 kilograms, or if we wanted to put it in grams, we know that there's 1000 grams in a kilogram, so this could also just be rewritten as 300 grams. Both are the exact same, but we'll say that our answer in this case is equal to 0.3 kilograms. So now let's move on to our fifth and final question of this lesson. We are told that if one DVD costs £12.95, then how much will it cost to buy 7 of these DVDs? Well, if we know one costs £12.95 and we want to figure out 7, that's just a case of saying £12.95 multiplied by 7. So just again, it's just using our knowledge of times tables in order to solve this problem. So to begin, we have 5 times 7, which is 35. So we put down the 5 and carry the 3. Next up we have 9 times 7, which is 63. Then we add on the other 3, which gives us 66. So we put the 6 down and carry the other 6. And now after the decimal point, we have 2 times 7, which is 14, plus the 6 gives us 20. So we put the 0 down and carry the 2. And finally we have 7 times 1 is 7, add the 2 on, gives us 9. So our answer in this case would be equal to £90.65 for 7 DVDs. So I hope this video has been helpful in going over 5 example questions of what we could expect to see in a National 4 non-calculator paper. But if you still have any question on one of the 5 questions we went over today, drop a comment down below and I'll see if I can help you out. And in the next video we will go into more examples that cover non-calculator practice. As always, if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel, or you can head over to our website at penguin-learning.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.